Week again. We are doing Geek Speak. Today we have a special guest. Of course, my name is Phelan with Seymour Digital Media, where we focus on search engine marketing. And my guest today is
Ashley, writer gal.
awesome. Yeah, and today we are talking about how you can use AI in your content marketing. Like, what are the best use cases for it? What kind of your do's and don'ts in order for you to optimize this as a tool to kind of help you get more work done and get it done properly, and as well get the most out of it, because these tools are super powerful, but they can also lead to some issues where people become over reliant or don't understand where it fits into your workflow, and getting a better understanding on that part.
Yeah, and that's the huge thing is that it can fit into your workflows, it can support you, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
meant to replace you. I mean, I've been
Mm-hmm.
writing for 17 years, various stuff. And it's only in the past few years this has been a thing that people are asking about. I mean, I'm getting people that aren't even in my niche asking me, "Is AI going to replace your job, Ashley?"
Yeah.
And it's not if you use it in the right way, which we'll have a chat about today.
Yeah, exactly. I think that that's the important part, is understanding its context within your business and understanding that it is not going to solve every issue you've ever had, and it's not like a silver bullet that's going to replace a bunch of stuff. Like, it's meant to extend what your team's already doing, because you'll still need to have writers. And I know that we've heard the stories of like the Air Canada, where they're on the hook all of a sudden because of like a chatbot that they had, and they didn't set the correct prompts, they didn't verify things, and they didn't have a person in the loop, which is going to be super important to, I think, is going to be kind of like the motto of what we're talking about today, is that it's supposed to automate boring things. Think of it like that, rather than replacing my writer. Like, it's just mundane, repetitive tasks that, or they're overly simple. I think that's kind of the key cornerstone that we have when when we prep for this today.
And it's all about, not letting AI do it all. There's always going to need to be a human element checking it and testing it. Like with that Air Canada example, I can't remember exactly what the bot promised them, but they were now on the hook.
Yeah.
And we don't want anyone else to be on the hook for something that AI might have said about their business. Especially when you're writing about things like maybe healthcare or safety. If AI writes something for you that's not correct, and remember, you're the expert, you still need to have that eyes on it to make sure that AI is doing it right. There's the right way and the wrong way to do it.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard as well that like newspaper companies as well that are trying to replace full writers wind up spending as much time editing it down, because it makes bombastic claims that it just are not backed up by anything that they have, and so they have to retract, because they're on the hook as publishers, that they don't want to libel anyone or anything like that, and so they understandably will edit those ones out.
Mhm.
So I think that, yeah, understanding that it's not just like a perfect solution out of the box, but you need to also have it as part. Yeah, I think of it more of as a tool rather than a person. I think is kind of the mental model that we're kind of coming to. Um, and so, what are some of the uses that you've seen with using it?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing when it comes to creating any kind of content, I focus on writing, but this can apply to videos, social media, anything, is using it as a brainstorming tool. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Phelan, like you mentioned, we're looking for ways that we can use AI to save time.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm teaching blogging, when I'm teaching writing, oh, sorry, one sec. When I'm teaching writing, one of the joys of sharing an office, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sorry. When I'm teaching writing, one of the big um, roadblocks people have is brainstorming, figuring out what to write, and that takes them forever. But with an AI tool, I can type in one word and get 10, 20, 30, as many as I want, blog post titles or topics, and it's right there in 2 seconds, and then you can vet the ones that you like and move forward with that. So I definitely find that brainstorming, getting things going is a really great way to use AI. I don't know if you've used AI for that kind of brainstorming as well.
Yeah, I think Pip more so. Sorry, My computer is very upset. I have to close some windows down because it is not happy camper right at the moment.
Oh,
Uh, Sorry about that.
I'm seeing a bit of lag here too.
Yeah. No, it's my computer's trying to do too many things at once. So, um, uh, and um, okay. So, but yeah, would it have, yeah, Pip and I had used it to do stuff like find me 5 new things about something that I'd never heard about or something like that, where it's ones where you're trying to find like, maybe edge cases of something or ones that are out there that are like not, that are not normal ones that you would find. And so there's definitely some brainstorming is a good use case for it as well. um, it's a
Mhm.
really good one for first drafts as well. Just kind
Yeah.
of because I think you talked about writer's block as well, because when you're looking at a blank page, it's tough to get going. Whereas if you use the AI to even just get something as a first draft, you go, well, I don't agree with this paragraph, but then it gives you something to bounce off of and then rewrite it better, so
Yeah.
that you're not just staring at a blank page, where you can actually look at it and be like, oh yeah, actually I like this, the way this is constructed. I would change these
Mhm.
words, like you have something to work with, because I find that I'm better when I don't have, blank page is kind of hard to work with. But even if it's a templated thing or something that I could just, I have a much easier time going, I agree with this. I like that. Maybe actually my research showed that this was actually going to be more the case, but at least it's something that you could work off of and
Mhm.
refine rather than just start whole cloth yourself.
Yeah, and I've sort of used it two ways. I said, ask the AI to give me an outline for a blog article, which is
Hmm.
really great. I can take and choose the outlines that I like, the subheadings, or write the first paragraph of a blog about this. It'll get
Hmm.
my ideas going. I would never use that paragraph. I'd always rewrite it, but it really kicks off that, that blank page is very scary.
Hmm.
Um, Once you have, that outline, and that's how even when I do it myself without using AI, I always start with an outline. I say, okay, I've got 500 words, 1,000 words. Here are my headings. I have approximately this many words for each heading, and it helps me kind of organize my thoughts. And that's basically what AI is doing for me. And I pick and choose what makes sense for starting a blog post, starting social media. I don't know, Phelan, have you guys ever used it for getting like ad copy or SEO keywords?
So yeah, actually, funny you mentioned that one. That was the most recent one that Pip's done. Is a really good use case for it. Is to basically Pip grabbed our Search Console data. So that's the stuff that we're showing up for in Google. She fed it the CSV, because on the ChatGPT 4 you can feed it data, and then ask the question, find me the top keyword I would have for this page, and this is the title of the
Mm-hmm.
page. And what it did, this is a really good use case for ChatGPT, because there's a distinction with AIs. One is that there's one mode that's called generative. So make me a picture that's of a dog eating a birthday cake, and it's going to generate you that image. But it has to know what a dog is, or it has to know what a cake is, and know what eating is, and so it kind of has to approximate that. Whereas if you say something like, there's uh, selective or regressive AI, which is what most of these large language models, right? It takes a ton of information and it regresses it down to, whenever you have this word follows it. Like that's kind of what it does. But if you give it data and you say, find me the keyword that's like I'm ranking for the best, that's one of its things that it will do really well with. And so you could use that information, because computers are just good at algorithmically grinding down something and being like, actually, we found this trend in the data.
Mm-hmm.
That's its strong suit. That's what it's really good for. So we've definitely used it for something like that. Ad copy, I found it to be, again, a good jumping off point, but I find
Mm-hmm.
it to be um, not as good as it thinks it is what I would
Yeah.
say. It gets a little repetitive. It gets a little like, it uses certain verbs and certain adjectives like all the time, or that,
Mm.
at least that's been my experience, is that you can feel that there's like a couple words I'm like, wouldn't, like, first, I don't know, what was it? We used it for our own, and it wanted to give us like a nautical theme. And I didn't really get, like, yeah, the ad copy was all like taking sail and like on your journey. And like, it just decided that we were going to be a nautically themed company. And I didn't quite get why.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That
So
goes to show, you don't just take what AI gives you blindly and put it on your website. Because if you did, which a lot of business owners do, they just take what AI gives them, what the generative stuff gives them, and puts it on the site. And then they find out later, oh, well, Seymour Digital isn't a nautical based company at all. I mean, yeah, you got a fish and you kind of live by the ocean. Like,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
about
yeah,
it. Like, there's no nautical theme to it.
yeah, yeah. It was. Yeah. Well, it was like all the like calls to action were all very nautical. It was just it was very. I didn't get where it came from with that one, but yeah, it was
Oh,
definitely an interesting one.
yeah. Hmm.
But I think also one other thing that kind of came up when we were talking about this in the prep is that keeping the AI also constrained, like giving it a lot of constraints and like very small segmented parts, it's easier for it to do. Of like only generate me 200 headlines that are exactly 30 characters long. If you can like get it does a better job with that. Though I found also doesn't it likes to ignore character limits if I give it to it. I have to like
Oh,
be very
really?
specific. It's just like make it 30 characters long, and then it's like 60, and I'm like, well, no, 30 characters. And then it was 45, and I was like, okay, like seriously.
Oh, the AI is already rebelling against us, right?
Yes, exactly. Um,
Oh dear.
uh, which is also a funny thing that's come up as well. Is that on the forums? I don't know if you've experienced it. We've done a couple of them. That the AI like ChatGPT just doesn't want to do the work because
Yeah.
it's been trained to be like a person. And people don't always want. They find excuses, and so apparently. Like there's a lot of complaints on the forums of like, yeah, I asked it to generate me 30 images, it generated two, and then told me to finish the rest. And so, there's it's entertaining what's kind of like the how would I put it, like the weirdness that comes out of AI because of like you don't always know how the model's gonna like speak, give it back to you, and so sometimes it's like it acts so much like a person that it's like, yeah, I don't want to work, you do the work.
Well, it's trying to keep us honest, I guess. Maybe it's a good thing, because we shouldn't be relying on AI to do this. It's reminding us that, hey, we're real people here. We should be doing some of this work too. So I guess when you think about it, it's actually a good thing that it's not doing all the work for us.
Yeah, yeah, I think that yeah, I think that a lot of, especially if you read like in the big newspapers and all that stuff, the way they talk about it is like it's going to
Mhm.
be a great apocalypse, and I'm not of the opinion that it's going to be like coming for all our jobs and like it
No,
because
no.
yeah, like there's just things like hard limitations on the amount of computing power that would be required to like have all of us compute these things. It just would be like the numbers that they would require. OpenAI is trying to get $10 trillion to build out whole
Mhm.
infrastructure networks, to build out new data centers and all this stuff. And it's just like, the amount of what they require when they calculate it out is just going to be so crazy that it would not.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm starting to
And
see a lot of articles and stuff online show up about the environmental impacts of using AI. We just
mhm,
use it thinking, "Oh, we can just use it. It's online, it's on the computer." But we don't think about, all the servers that you mentioned that they have, all the power that takes, all of that computing power is going to be damaging if we rely on it too much, if we use it too much for things that we don't really need to.
yeah, exactly. And as well, that there's like, I won't go into like rare earth metal stuff, but like those are difficult to get out of the ground. That's why they're called rare
Mhm.
earth metals, and they're difficult to get from places, process them, all the stuff just to make a GPU to run these data centers.
Mhm.
I know that it's going to be a huge one that is going to have a lot of long term effects, and especially for the expansion that they want to do with
Mhm.
AI, is it's going to be a lot of work. Um, but I think that I think just being more thoughtful about how to use it in your mix of your business, I think is going to be a good one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that it's yeah, I don't know about it like growing past this point. Like that's the part where I'm a little like I kind of see it as a little bit plateauing a little bit
Mhm.
because like to scale up more, it's going to be crazy. We've got a question here as well.
Mhm.
how do we feel about training an LLM, which is a large language model, which is what ChatGPT and all these are basically? It's like a
Hmm.
really large model of language, and it knows things about it. Um, so it's a great question. Um, I don't know about like specific ones like the Odin AI or Umbrel.
Mm.
Uh, I don't know about them specifically, but I think in general, I think that they have like some really good things going for them, because if you have a closed network, you're the it's kind of one of those, like they say it in computer science, is like garbage in, garbage out. So if you give it bad data, you're going to get bad data out of it.
Yeah.
So with these ones, I think that you can control what's going in and have it trained more to like your own separate data set. I think that would be it'd be interesting, and I think it could be good for businesses. I know that
Hmm.
there's ones of like banks and insurance companies that have been using a lot of this as well. For just doing like they're having to do tons of computation. So if you can get an algorithm or a large language model to compute through a lot of this stuff, that's going to save you a lot of time. And so they only train it on their own, like privately held information versus the internet, which is that's one of the big ones, right? Is like the more people are using this stuff, the more it's out there, the more that the ChatGPT gets trained on. It's kind of like a recursive loop of
Yeah.
getting fed on its own self and giving it what they call like digital dementia, where it's like you're just getting fed your own part, and kind of it's not working as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I've had a client that came to me recently with that, and she had her own model. I can't remember what site she was using. She put in all of her like PDFs and all of her program information, and the stuff that or it wasn't Chat GP, whatever the program was, whatever it was generating for her and content wise was factual, which was great, but it wasn't her. Like it included
mm,
a little bit of her the way she talks and from the language, but it still wasn't. It didn't include like the personal stories, the human element of language, but factually, it was more correct than if I put the same prompt into Chat GPT or something more generic. So I mean, in that respect, it's good, but still, like I didn't take any of the content that gave me. I just rewrote
mhm.
it all in my own words, but it was an interesting thing to see how that works.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's where the interesting part. I've heard of some people even training it to sound like what
Hmm.
themselves, of like, here, read like 100 blog posts that I've written, and because
Yeah.
it's in their own voice, that it is super useful for them to be able to do that. Uh, and so they're saying that they are want to geek out more offline with Pip as well. I think they have a bunch of awesome comments. Thank you, Laura, for all these. Um, and so yeah, I think that this is a good way to do it, and I think that because that's a big one that's coming up as well, is issues of copyright. I
Hmm.
mean, a lot of what AI helps for businesses is kind of, I want to say, like getting around copyright, but you could be like, well, who knows where it got all this information from, and so that's a big one that
Hmm.
is it's a big looming thing about AIs, is that like how attribution, who wrote this, like in
Yeah.
and I know that there's been one court case that said if it's generated by AI, it technically doesn't have a copyright if it's like purely generative. But then there's like the how did it get trained? Who gave it that information? Which is, I think that's a big one that I mean, it's not for me to decide. Like, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't run OpenAI, but that's definitely one that is going to have to get figured out. And I think that that's a big one that
Yeah.
is. I don't know where that's going to shake out, but I think that's going to also really define the boundaries of it. Not only like we talked about physically, like how much it
Hmm.
can compute, but also like who's legally responsible for what it says and all
Ethically.
that part. And I think
Yeah.
that's one that's going to be. Uh, I don't envy the lawyers that have to figure that part out, because that it's a big headache that I don't want any part of.
No, and I mean, what if somebody goes out there and they probably have used AI to write a whole book and published it?
Yeah.
What impacts does that have? That's kind of why if you like we talked about it before about using shorter bits of
Hmm.
text. If you ask AI to generate one sentence, chances are, sentence structure can only go so far, so many different variations.
Hmm.
There might not be, again, I'm not a lawyer. There may
Yeah.
not be any copyright issues with one sentence that sounds like something else that's out there, as
Yeah.
opposed to larger pieces of text. So again, it goes back to short text, and rewriting still, adding your personal touches, personal perspectives to anything that AI generates for you.
Yeah, yeah. I think that I totally agree with that. That it's having it small and condensed, and using it for the brainstorming or like a short
Mm-hmm.
intro paragraph that you just to
Yeah.
kick things off. Uh, I I think that that is a good use and a good prompt, and it saves you from any issues later on because
Mm-hmm.
then that you wrote it. You're not like, well, I didn't even know. Like you don't want to be responsible for something, or even if it like made an
Yeah.
not an allegation, but maybe made it a unsubstantiated like assertion, and then you're on the clock for being cited for that. And so it's definitely one where I think that that will really help a lot of businesses just to not accidentally say something they didn't mean to or double check.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, even a
yeah.
way around that would be use AI for research as opposed to content generation. I do that for clients that I don't know anything about their niche and I need some top resources or links or just, definitions of certain things. Use
Hmm.
AI for that instead of generating the content that you're going to use in the end result.
Yeah. This was an interesting point as well that I think, um, yeah, I think that it's a good idea to, yeah, treat it,
Yeah.
um, yeah, how to view the copyright. I think that, yeah, that's a good way to do this. I think that, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of conversations between people, about
Hmm.
figuring this part out. I think, I was going to say, uh, I had a thought, it evaporated from me at the last second. Um, but yeah, I think that it is. Oh, I was going to say, what you were saying also works with like I heard the content manager for MailerLite, the email marketing platform, that the way they were using it is basically they have they have the research and they know their voice. And then what they do is they just get basically the AI, kind of what we are talking about, to do a first draft of like, hey, write me an article about why cosmetic companies are getting a 5% increase in their open rates because of this type of email. And so they have the data, they know that they're putting that in, and then it does the boring part of actually writing like a structure, and then they go through and add their voice on top of it. And so
Hmm.
it's a good workflow of, it's not, it's like, to me, that's a really good use case where like, you've got your facts right, you've got voice, and then the boring part of like actually writing out like a boring article that like, you've got to hit these points, and it's just
That's
like,
the fun
okay.
part. That's the part I like, the writing part.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
I'm a
that's
rare
fair.
breed, though.
Yeah. Well, no, that's
Yeah.
good. Like, I think that, and if that's what you're looking for, like, obviously you're
Yeah.
using it for your own way, that I think it's like looking at it as part of your workflow and
Yeah.
how you work with it. I think that's going to be the most important part.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that the other part that's going to be interesting as well is that Google didn't officially say, but they've basically said that like it's good. There's so much AI content now that they can't really distinguish the two.
Hmm.
It's just so much, and because it's like a regressive, like an algorithm, they would use a regressive algorithm as well to be like, okay, in our large language model, we found that these words all came together, but it's like it's becoming so much that they just can't even detect it. So that's going to be, I mean, as humans, I feel like, when you're reading something, you can definitely
You
feel
can
when they've,
tell.
yeah, you could, it's just one of those weird things that humans do well, of like that uncanny valley where it's just like, it's close, but it's not quite like, why would a person say it this way, kind of thing.
Yeah. And people are smart. People know, they may not know what's wrong with the copy, but they'll
Yeah.
read it, whether it's your website, your blog, your social media, and they'll just get that feeling that this isn't right. This isn't on brand. This doesn't sound like, the person behind the business. And that really, really stands out. And I think maybe one way to get around, not get around that, it's not the right word. One way to make it sound less AI is that if you do use portions of AI, is to work in those stories that AI doesn't
Mm,
know about.
yeah.
Like if we were to do write something about today's thing, about today's live,
Yeah.
we would be throwing in our own ideas and stuff like that, our own stories. Like we've thrown in stories that we've heard in the news. Thrown in stories from my business, and that will make it sound less robotic. AI still sounds, even if you ask it to be light and cheery, it still sounds robotic a lot of the time. And people know, people
Yeah.
will see that.
Yeah. Or like a twee is another emotion that I notice a lot with it, where it gives me like a oh boy kind of like
Yeah,
responses, and it's just like it feels inauthentic, but that's
yeah,
because like the machine wouldn't know that that is would come across as inauthentic. They're just trying to be positive and happy, and then but they don't get that it sounds like overly sincere, and
yeah,
so it comes across as insincere to people because most people are just using yeah, or just have more world experience than the AI does, and it doesn't know how interactions on an emotional level work. And so
yeah,
that's kind of a limitation that it has. And I mean, that's just kind of the brass tacks of it. And I think that, um, yeah, I think ultimately, like I would say, like, yeah, it's not. I don't think it's coming for your jobs. I don't think it's come.
no,
It's going to be the end of the world. I mean, even looking at the example of like the Amazon grocery store.
hmm,
Remember the one that you could walk in and walk out,
yeah.
and they're just saying that it was all AI, and then it turns out like no, it was thousands of people in India watching the cameras, and then I'm manually like charging people, and it was they
Oh no,
yeah so like the AI vision of where like businesses think it's going to be and what it's going to do it just doesn't line up with kind of the limitations. I think that um it yeah, I think that ultimately it's just one that we're just going to be able to use. It's just like a easy automation tool. I think personally that's
hmm,
where I see it really its future is not like taking over, but basically just kind of fitting into the slot of all of our tech tools and how we use them. I think is a yeah, easier way to kind of conceptualize it.
yeah. It's like I said in the beginning, it supports content creation, it supports our businesses, but it's never going to replace us. We're always needed. And yeah, from people like me, I'm getting those questions all the time. So I have to have those responses on why they should hire me and not trust the AI. So it's adding a little bit more work to my plate now. But people are, AI has been around for content generation for, well, I guess, a couple of years now, the past year really, and people know, people understand that. And if your budget is a little bit shorter, you're a new business, maybe you might rely on it a little bit more starting out, but as you grow, as you build into your own voice and your own perspectives and experience, you can start to pull away from relying on AI and using more copywriters, using your own voice and content.
Yeah, I think that that's a good way to look at it is making your own resources go farther. If you got
Yeah,
tight budgets, if you've
yeah,
got you can look at this as a way to like spread it out a little longer, make things work a little better because like yeah, you're going to have a lot of you may have constraints or something. But
mhm,
yeah, I think that looking at it more pragmatically as like a glue that fits into
yeah.
gluing more spots together than it is a replacement for whole departments. I think
Yeah,
that
it's just
that's
optimizing
yeah,
business practices. What we're all learned when we learn
yeah,
about business. Look for ways that you can optimize. And I think this is one way we can. But just again with the warning, don't rely on it as don't fire all your employees and replace them with the AI. It won't last long.
yeah, and it won't be as good as we
Yeah.
expect. Um, and so yeah, there's a lot of comments here from Laura as well. Uh, I'll just add this one.
It gets comical. Yeah, it totally
Yeah,
does.
yeah, it definitely it has some issues that come out to the fore.
Mhm.
And so yeah, um I think we got a good spot with it. I think that we kind of looked at, I mean I think both of us are going to be using it. I think that it's just going to be kind of fit more as like a tool in our
Yeah,
arsenal than yeah, I think that's kind of where I see it's coming up
agreed.
compared to like where the hype like of what people think that it's going to be. I just don't see it there.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. No, let's use it to support us, to help us all grow and
Yeah.
scale our businesses, but not replace us. It never will. I don't think it will.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so I guess we'll close it out there. It's been a great talk, Ashley. And again, my name is Phelan with Seymour Digital Media.
And I'm Ashley at Writer Gal Marketing.
Awesome. Bye for now.